Hello, everybody. Just waiting to check to make sure that I have everything working okay. Just bring my screens up and okay, hopefully you can hear me. Just going to quickly turn up my screen. Hello, everybody. Okay, now I know you can. Okay, I was just checking with my other computer to make sure that you could see me and that you can hear me, and I know that you should be able to. So welcome to tonight's webinar on how to reduce stress in your life. And I'm just going to run through a couple of housekeeping things as we have a few people are still logging in. So I've got a few people on the line and there'll be a few more jumping in. So down the right-hand side of your screen, you will see a box. If you want to send me a question or anything or make a comment, just write your message in there. You'll actually see a little bit of an arrow. You can either change it to ask a question or chat. Doesn't really make any difference because I'll be watching the screen anyway. I've got a dashboard and they all come up for me. So during the presentation, at any time, if you want to make a comment, I'm actually going to ask you to do a little bit of work and ask you to give me a bit of feedback. So just put it in the chat box, or if you want, you can ask me a question and I will stop every so often. Also, with this software, we do have the ability, if anybody does actually want to speak live on the call, you can do so. So right at the very top, there is a green box that says request to speak. If you do that, your hand will come up on my screen and I can then actually accept you. You'll then get a screen on your, you'll get a window box come up on your screen, which is just a Google message, and you accept that and you'll be able to come live on the call. Now, you don't actually have to turn your camera on if you don't want to. If you want to see me, that's great. That's if you want to ask me a question live. So we do have the ability to do that. But if not, just use the chat box. That's pretty easy for most people. So I am just about going to get ready now. Hang on, I've just got to change a bit of a screen for me so it's a bit smaller so I can see everything. Oops. And then I'm going to get going. Okay, I think I have it the right size now. So, how to reduce stress in your life. How many of you spend most of your life feeling stressed and overwhelmed? You've got so many things to do. I'm assuming I've got quite a few business owners on the call tonight. Some of you are probably mums or your partners, but you've got lots of different things going on in your mind. And as we get towards the end of the year, I see so many women who are basically like limping it in for the last few months, and they kind of just like they're just making it through to the finish line. And by the time they get to Christmas, New Year, they're totally and utterly exhausted. And if that's you, feel free to join in the chat conversation there and tell me, how do you feel? Actually, that's a bit of a question I'd just like to ask you. How do you normally feel when you get to the end of the year? What is your energy level like? How are you feeling? What are your stress levels like? If you've got a pen and paper with you right now, write a couple of things down about what you can remember about last year as you got to the end of the year. Were you full of energy or were you just really, really tired? Just make a couple of little notes. And I'd love to know if you want to share anything in the chat box, let me know, pop it in the chat box and let's have a bit of a discussion. Oh, one thing I should mention too, besides the fact I have a cough and I'm going to try not to cough all night, is you're hearing me about 60 seconds behind me speaking because you're watching this through a YouTube stream. So if you just drop your chats into the chat box, I'll keep talking and I'll come back to you. So if I don't seem to be answering your questions straight away, that's why. So I'm just going to kind of keep talking, keeping the flow running, and I'll just come back. So just make a little bit of a note of what Christmas is generally like for you. How, is it completely and utterly hectic? Or are you one of these people, and I really envy you, who's already done all their Christmas shopping? They've got everything sorted, so they just really breeze it into Christmas. I really don't know too many. None of my clients are ever like that. They're coming to me at this time of year feeling really stressed and overwhelmed, particularly when they're running businesses, because quite often, if you're in retail, your business is starting to ramp up. And if you're not, if you're in service, well, then sometimes you start to worry about how you're going to get through the Christmas period, because this quite often can be the slow time of year and you don't have enough business. So either way, it starts to stress you out. So just think, how is Christmas normally for you? So as I said, put a couple of comments in the box for me. But as you're doing that, I'd just like to introduce myself for those of you who don't know me, who haven't. Some people may have just kind of had a little bit to do with me on Facebook and actually haven't worked with me. My name is Angela Council. Not sure if Bianca, you're meant to just be seeing my slides, not me. So hopefully that answers your question. So the slides will change over. You'll see me on the slide right now, because I can tell you that is a better photo than what I look like at the moment. I can bring me up on the screen later on. So I, as I said, my name is Angela Council. I've spent the last 10 years as a clinical naturopath, and I've worked with so many women. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of women who are stressed, who are overwhelmed. And in this time, I've seen that the biggest problems that come up for these women is that they're juggling so many different things. And yes, that's right, Bianca. Women are just juggling so many different things. One of a quote I think that was attributed to the Dalai Lama. He said, "The world will be saved by Western woman." But I don't think that's going to happen if Western woman is a screaming heap in the corner on the floor because she's so stressed and overwhelmed. And what I find is that women really don't understand stress completely. They only understand one part of it. And my mission is to teach women more about stress, because I believe when they understand more about what stress is and what causes it, you can actually start to make a few changes in your life. And I'm going to share some of that stuff with you tonight. As I said, I'm a naturopath. I've run small clinics. I've run very large clinics. I've personally been burnt out myself. I've got to the stage when I was running my large clinic that I completely and utterly burnt myself out. I thought I was the worst mum in the world because I was always working so hard, because I had at the time had two very young children. I felt like a fraud because I was working with women, teaching them about how to manage their stress, but I wasn't managing my own. I wasn't sleeping properly. I wasn't eating properly. I was drinking too much wine. I was doing very little exercise, and it all just became way too much for me. Got to the stage where basically I didn't want to be in my business. I actually was glad when people would ring up and cancel. Now, I love my clients. I love working with clients, but the actual being in the business, I had no motivation. I had no energy. And finally, I actually closed my clinic down about 2 years ago. And in that time, after that, I then wrote a book which was called Secret Mum's Business. Secret Mum's Business has been a #1 bestseller on Amazon, and in the print copy, there's probably about 2,000 print version hard copies out in circulation at the moment. Secret Mum's Business was a bit of, it was kind of what I knew as a naturopath. It was what I knew from the health side of things, and then what I'd learned from personal development about how you could actually create the life of your dreams. And even though I wrote this book, I was still struggling. I was still burnt out. I still wasn't really clear on what it was I wanted to do. And it wasn't until early this year, actually it was during the Christmas New Year break this year, I took some time, and I actually happened to be walking down the beach one day, and it was really, really quiet. And I realized, it came to me, I actually wasn't following anything that I'd written in my book. Everything that I'd written about, I wasn't doing it. And that's why it wasn't working for me. That's why I was still stressed. That's why I was still burnt out. That's why I was still really struggling with my business, trying to get my business to grow, because I didn't have the energy to grow it. I didn't have the motivation because there was nothing left in me. My energy bucket was empty. And when I kind of had that realization, I thought, well, I've got the tools. All I need to do is go follow the steps. I know what it is, because this is the stuff I work with my clients. So I did. I went and I actually followed the steps that I put down in my book. And it's amazing what happens when you get real clarity around that and you have a real vision and you're working towards your own values and you're trying to create, you're creating something that works for you rather than something that works for everybody else. And now, my business has changed. It's transformed. Sorry. I'm writing my next book, and it's solely on stress. It's a lot more technical than the first book. Hopefully it's going to be finished in the next, I'm aiming to have it finished by the end of the year, so I'll be able to publish it early in the new year. I've spent a lot of time writing it over the last couple of weeks. So that's kind of where I am now. And what I do now is when I was in clinic, I worked on lots of different conditions. Now I solely work with women on stress. I spend all my time learning about what stress is, what causes stress, on a physical level, on an emotional level, and on a spiritual level. And that's what I teach women. I'm going to teach you some of this stuff tonight, because if you want to get to the end of the year, if you want to get to Christmas so that you can really enjoy your Christmas rather than be totally and utterly wiped out, there's some things that you may need to change in your life. And some of the things I'm going to share with you tonight are really, really easy. So, my screen's gone a bit wonky here, but it may not on yours. So what I'm going to cover tonight is what stress is. So what the story of stress is. I'm going to show you how you can change your story of stress. I'm going to talk to you about time, because one of the things that I always get told whenever I ask women, what's your biggest issue? It's always about their time, not having enough time, having too much to do. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. I'm going to talk to you about sleep. I'm going to talk to you about the way what your thoughts create. I'm going to give you a tip that you can do immediately, and it'll drop your stress straight away. So how's that sound? So I'm just having a quick look at my chat bar. Jennifer's generally organised at Christmas, but it's the family and others that raise my stress level. So we're going to talk about that a little bit too, because sometimes you can be really organised, but you think other people are causing you stress. We're going to talk about that a little bit when we talk about the thoughts, because then because you're pulling on other people's energy. So we will cover that a little bit when we talk about your thoughts. So I asked you what Christmas is normally like for you. Now on your piece of paper, I'd like to know what your ideal Christmas would look like. If you could create what your ideal Christmas would be like, what would it look like? How would you be? I'm assuming you would be enjoying yourself. What would your business look like? What would your life look like? What would Christmas look like if you could create your ideal Christmas? I want you to write a couple of things down about what Christmas would be like, or what the end. No, it doesn't even have to be Christmas. What the end of the year is going to be like. What's this last 3 months of the year going to be like for you? If you could create the ideal things, what is it that you want in this 3 months? We don't have many weeks left till the end of the year. So what is it that you would really like to have if you could have anything? I'd love to hear some of your things. You just pop them up on the screen, put them in the chat box for me. But write it down, because I want you to see the difference between where you are quite often to where you want to be. I want you to see the gaps, because we're going to see if we can bridge some of those gaps for you. Oh, dear. Just take a bit of a breath and another drink of water. So let's talk about what stress is. Most people think stress is just being busy, or it's the fight you had with your husband, or it's trying to get the kids out the door to get them to school on time. Now, those situations can be stressful, but they're not really what stress is. Stress is a physiological response by the body. And if we just go back a few years, well, a few 100,000 years, and we go back to caveman times, and before I go into where cavemen came from, our brain is broken into 3 different parts. One is the primitive brain, one is the limbic brain, and the other is the prefrontal cortex. Now, the primitive brain is our first brain. So this is the brain that humans first had. When we evolved from animals or from, the apes, we had the primitive brain. The primitive brain is also known as our reptilian brain. Sorry. The sole function of your primitive brain or your reptilian brain is to keep you alive. It actually controls all your body functions. It's what keeps your heart beating. It's what keeps your lungs breathing. It controls your immune system. It controls your reproductive system. It controls every single system and function in your body. That's what the primitive brain does. And you don't think about it at all. It just happens because you don't sit there and think about your heart beating. You don't sit there and think about your lungs breathing. That all just happens without you thinking about it. So this is what we call subconscious. Then we have our limbic brain. Now, our limbic brain is where our memories and our emotions are stored. And this is what makes you, cry. This is what makes you think of a memory that might make you feel happy, or think of another memory that might make you feel sad. This is within your limbic brain. Now, the only humans, the monkeys, and a few mammals actually have a limbic brain, and none of them are as developed as what ours are. Then we have our prefrontal cortex. Now, prefrontal cortex, I know this is a bit technical. I'm going to stop the technical stuff in a minute. Prefrontal cortex is like our higher brain. And our higher brain, that's where we analyze. That's where we think. It is actually our conscious brain. It's the stuff where we actually make decisions. And that's being made in the front of our brain, in our prefrontal cortex. So that's probably about as technical as I'm going to get right now. I go into a lot more detail in my book. And also when I run my programs, I go into a lot more detail. But what I just want you to know is that we have this primitive brain. And every single cell in our body actually is sending messages to our primitive brain about staying alive. So it's on alert all the time, and it's looking for threats. And some of you may have heard of the term fight and flight. And the opposite to fight and flight is rest and digest. Now, our fight and flight response is what keeps us alive. So when we were cave women, and we were kind of just wandering the earth, and our main function was to eat, to reproduce and keep the fire burning, but we had to stay on alert all the time. And our brains and all the cells in our bodies were actually staying on alert to see if there was danger. And as soon as there was any danger, what would happen automatically without thinking is the body would automatically drop into a stress response. And what would happen when it dropped into a stress response is the heart would beat harder. The blood would circulate faster. The body would drop what's known as glycogen, which is muscle glucose or muscle sugar, out of the muscles into the blood system. All of this was designed to get us to run as fast as we could to get away from the threat so that we didn't get eaten by the saber-toothed tiger. So this is the fight and flight. Now, what women tend to run, because we go into the flight, men tend to fight because that's their masculine energy. But it doesn't really matter. The reaction is the same. You don't think about that. It just happens. It automatically happens. And this is all controlled under a hormone called adrenaline. So adrenaline actually pumps all this, and when it puts all the blood out to the arms and legs, what it does is it takes it away from the digestive system. So your digestive system shuts down because you don't need to be digesting your meal if you don't want to meal for a tiger. So our digestive system shuts down when we're really, really stressed. Now, if you have a lot of problems with your digestive system in that you bloat, or you have issues with constipation or diarrhea or alternating, which are particularly worse when you're stressed, it's all a stress response. The other things that happen when under this same influence of stress is that your reproductive system will shut down. Because if you've got ongoing stress, the body doesn't really need to worry about producing babies. It wants to stay alive. So it actually throws your reproductive hormones out of balance. It will also affect your thyroid hormones. And then we've got another stress hormone, which is apart from adrenaline, and that's called cortisol. And what cortisol does is it's kind of like our feast and famine hormone. Because once again, if we go back through generations, there wasn't always food available. You know, there were times when there was lots of foods, there were times when there wasn't food. So we have this hormone called cortisol, which is designed to store fat for the times when you don't have any food. So when if your cortisol levels are high, it's because the body thinks it's not going to get fed again, so it stores fat. And where it stores fat generally is around the tummy. So if you have a lot of trouble losing weight around the tummy, you've got to start to look at your stress levels. And a lot of times doing more exercise is actually counterintuitive to the body, and you don't lose weight. Because if you're doing high impact exercise and your body is already stressed and you're say doing running and your body's already in a fight and flight mode, and if you start to run even more, it thinks that there's still a tiger chasing you, and it's actually going to hold on to that fat even more. So, and I used to see this all the time in clinic, and I used to have women who used to come in when they say, I'm trying to lose weight and it doesn't matter how much I exercise, I just cannot shift this weight around my tummy. And when I look at their stress levels and what was going on, it was because of their stress. And so we had to change the type of exercise they were doing and get into more gentle exercise, and they would actually lose more weight and lose the tummy weight doing gentle exercise like yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi than they ever did when they were doing the high impact stuff. Because then when we drop that, we've dropped one bit of stress and we can address the rest of the stress. So with this story of stress comes a whole pile of symptoms, and I mentioned a couple: digestive problems, problems with your reproductive system. Because your body is using up a whole pile of glucose when you're in this stress situation, you tend to crave sugars. So you want more sugars because you've got to replenish that. You need the sugar for energy. Sugar is a quicker burning fuel for the body than fat is. So it will always burn sugar before it will burn fat. So if you're craving sugar, that's what your body's going to burn. It doesn't matter how much fat you've got and how much exercise you're doing. It's actually going to be burning sugar before it burns fat. It takes it's really hard for the body to burn fat, particularly when it's stressed, because it wants to hold on to it. Other issues that come when you have high levels of stress is you can have mood disorders like anxiety, irritability, depression, all come from having high levels of stress because it changes your hormones. It can change your thyroid hormone. So hypothyroidism or underactive thyroid is very, very common in our society today, and it's directly related to stress. So as you can see, there's a whole pile of symptoms tied up with having stress, and most people don't realize it. And all this is happening and you can't control it. So what can we do to change your story of stress? There are a few things. And firstly, I want to talk about why it's important that we do change the story of stress. Number one is because the biggest killer of women in our society is cardiovascular disease. It's heart attack. The top 5 diseases that kill women in our society are all related to lifestyle and stress. Stress is killing us. It's ruining our lives, and we're not realizing it because so many women believe that stress is normal and there's no other way to be. They think if I'm running a business, I've got a family, I've got a partner, I've got all this stuff, stress is normal. Stress is not normal. Stress is highly common, but but it doesn't have to be normal. You can change it. And I know because I've seen the difference in my life when I made some of these changes and actually stopped this stress response. And I've seen it in the lives of my clients. I run online programs. I work with clients one-on-one. And I recently even just ran a 21-day program. And just in 21 days, the change that was made in some of the lives of the women that were on that program was unbelievable. You know, and for me, it was really humbling to actually see that happen in just 21 days. So I know that it's totally possible to, you can't get rid of all stress in your life, but you don't want to. Stress keeps you alive. But let's get rid of the extra stress that we don't need. Take some of the load off your body, take some of the load off everything, all the hormones that are going on, and allow the body to actually do what it needs to do. So this is why I want to talk to you about changing. As I said, I'm going to talk to you about now. Time is a big one, particularly now as we get into the end of the year. And please, as I said, feel free, drop questions in, make comments as we go along, and I'll stop every so often and I'll come back and I'll answer them. But time is a big issue. End of the year, and if we're running our business, if we've had plans at the beginning of the year and we look at it, we think we haven't achieved our plans. This is another year that's gone past and nothing's changed. Or I've just got this to-do list that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. The thing about time is it's actually quite flexible. Have you ever done something and when you absolutely love it, it seems like it goes on forever? You lose all sense of time. And other times when you're in a hurry and you're looking at a clock, time seems to go really, really short. Now, when I looked at a clock, you know, a minute is a minute, but sometimes you can stretch it and other times you can compress it. So what's going on there? Why does sometimes time seem to go on forever and other times time doesn't? And that's what I want to talk to you about, because we can actually use time to our advantage and stretch it rather than having everything compressed. So a couple of things I just want to talk about when it comes to time, and particularly about the way the brain works. The brain is designed to be distracted. Now, I told you before that the brain is on alert all the time. The primitive brain is on alert. It's looking, you know, in the bushes and in the grass to see if there's anything there to it's going to eat it. So the brain is always on alert. It's designed to be distracted. And these days it's so easily distracted because every 2 seconds we have a notification popping up on our phones, on our laptops, on our iPads, telling us that something's going on in the world. So our brain loves that, but it also thinks every time there's a ding, my God, there's a tiger there. Bing, there's another ding. Oh, something's trying to kill me. Ding, there's another ding. So it's in a constant stress response because it's looking for all these things to be eating it or to be attacking it. And what's attacking it is your social media, it's your text, all of that, because it's on all the time. That primitive part of the brain doesn't know that you're now living in 21st century life. It still thinks you're living in first century life. So it's actually triggering these stress responses all of the time. The other thing about the brain is it actually only has limited time for focus. So the research has shown that, and the focus comes in the prefrontal cortex, which is our higher brain. We've only got about 30 to about a maximum 60 minutes of focus time when you can actually sit down and focus on one complex task. After that, the brain power kind of disappears. And if you try to keep working without a break, you will struggle. And you probably know this. You start to get distracted and all of a sudden, all those distractions come at you. So recharge the brain after your 30 or 45 minutes. You either need to feed it some food because, and brain actually works on glucose. So it does work on sugar, but I don't recommend you be using processed sugar. But it does actually feed on glucose. That's where it gets its energy from. But, you know, some fruit and things like that. The other thing is rest, and that's when you walk away from whatever you've been working on, have a break, and then come back. The other thing is the brain, despite what you think, the brain can only process one complex task at a time. The brain cannot multitask. When you're trying to do more than one thing at a time, you actually decreasing your ability to do something by at least 50%, and sometimes even more. And you'll see this sometimes. One of the plays that I see it a lot is, when people talk on phones in the car, and when they're just driving the same way every single day, it's quite easy. You can just drive the car, you know where to go, you know where you're going to turn, and you're not completely focusing on the phone, and you're not completely focusing on what you're driving, and we already know that, which is why we're not supposed to be speaking on the phone. But put yourself into a situation whereby you're driving in an area that you don't know. You're in another country, you're on the wrong side of the road, or you're going somewhere where you've never been, and all of a sudden there's cars going everywhere. And if someone tried to ring you at the time, you would not be able to focus on both at the same time. You would actually, hopefully, would say to whoever it was, I can't speak to you right now, I'm concentrating, because you can't do both, because otherwise you're going to end up with an accident, because you just cannot do it. And there's other things, when you're really trying to focus on something and someone tries to interrupt you and you're trying to do two things at once. The brain does not work that way. Once again, because it's trying to keep you alive. So if you're focusing on more than one thing at a time, there's a possibility that something's going to slip through. And the other thing, and this particularly at this time of year, the brain is, particularly with the amount of information that's coming into our brain right now, it can't remember it all. So forget about remembering everything. Write it down. If there's something that you need to remember, write it down. Don't try and remember it, because the more we get bombarded and the more we've got distractions going on, the less you're going to remember. So if you need to have a notebook, or there's apps, on your phone, Evernote. I use Evernote. I use Asana. I just use the notepad. Whatever it is, start to write things down. And if you've got things written down, if you put things into your diary, if you've got everything written down, you're not going to forget, because at this time of the year, there's so many different things on. You've got kids' concerts, you've got Christmas parties, you've got client events, you've got all these different things. If you don't write things down, you're going to get totally and utterly lost. And you can't expect your brain to remember this much information. It was never designed to remember this much information. Remember, cave people used to walk the earth, and they never used to have all this social media. They never used to have all these different social events. Our brain has not been made that way, yet we're expecting it to. So a couple of really simple things and quick things that I want to talk to you about, how you can organize your time. And I do go into this a lot more in my book and in my programs, but I'm just going to give you a couple of really quick tips. Number one, have a vision. And even if for this time of year, I ask you to write down what your ideal Christmas would look like. That can be your vision. Have a vision for how you want to get through the end of this year. And, and even if it is, you say you're organized, but do you want to get through the end of this year whereby your family isn't stressing you out? Have a vision for all of that. Create a vision. Write it down. What is it? Why is it important to you to get through this part of the year without the stress? And generally when I work with my clients and in my programs, we do bigger visions, but you can just do a short vision, and that just keeps you focused. And then after that, once you know what's really important to you and what you're trying to create, you look at all the tasks that come in and you decide whether or not they're important and whether or not they're urgent. Now, they're important. Tasks are important when they're important to you, not when they're important to somebody else. So they're important to you because they're part of your bigger picture. They're part of what you're trying to achieve. They're important to you because it's your family and your family's important to you. It's important to you because you want to have a happy Christmas, and this is going to help you have a happy Christmas. And then look at the urgency, because quite often other people will put urgency on you and they say, oh, this needs to be done by now. and you continually doing things for other people. And then when you actually ask the question, when do you really need this done by? Oh, I don't need it for 3 weeks. But you're immediately jumping in to fix a problem in an urgent state. So start to look at your tasks. If things are coming in and things have to be done, write them down and then quickly go, well, is this important to me? How urgent is this? If it's not important, well, then it's not urgent. So just drop it down the list. If it's not important, maybe you need to learn to say no. And you know, you don't have to go to every single Christmas event. It's actually okay to say no. And one of the things bad at doing is saying no, because we don't want to upset people. But you've got to start to look after what's the best for you, for your energy, because if you're putting your energy out to everybody else and you're not giving the energy back to you, you're just going to get stressed because you're being pulled, and and your brain is in this survival mode and you're giving out all this energy. So it's thinking, and energy is fuel. So basically it's thinking it's starving because you're giving this energy out. And even though it might be an emotional energy, the body's still thinking it's starving. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into thoughts. But so we're still having a response, and it's still a stress response, because 80% of all stress, actually probably even more than 80% of all stress, comes from the thoughts and your beliefs. The other things that affect are the food you eat and the environment you're in, but the majority of it is about your thoughts. So when it comes to organizing your time, have lists of what has to be done. Block time out and get a routine. Put in your diary, this time is work and this is when I'm going to be answering emails. This time is when I'm going to be doing this. This is family time. Block it out and value your personal time. If you're running a business, make sure you value your personal time. Don't allow the business to take over and creep into personal time. And it's really easy to do. I mean, even tonight, I'm running a webinar for you guys tonight. This generally is family time, but I don't do it often that I run things at night, but I do because I understand that it's easier for you guys to get onto a call at night time. But I do have pretty clear blocks around my time. So there's only a couple of nights a week when I would ever do nighttime calls, and that's because my daughter's off at Cubs tonight, so I don't really need to be spending money. I don't need to be spending time with her because she's not here. So yes, but there's other nights when everybody's at home and that I wouldn't be doing calls. So be real clear about that. So block your time, get a routine, and also delegate. Get other people to help you, and whether or not that be within your business or at home, be really comfortable with delegating, because other people can do things just as well, if not better than you. And if you're doing everything, all you're doing is running yourself out. There's a saying, don't take on someone else's monkey. If someone comes to you and says, we have a problem, we don't have a problem until you decide to take it on. It's someone else's problem until you take it on. So, that where they say their monkeys, their circus, don't take on other people's problems. You've got enough of your own. You don't need to take them on. So if someone comes and says, we've got a problem. No, I don't have a problem. You've got a problem. What do you need to do to resolve it? Do you need any input from me? But I'm not taking your problem on. So be very careful about that. And that even goes with, your family. And, if your family is stressing you out, don't take their problems on. That's their circus. Don't play with their monkeys. You've got enough of your own monkeys to play with. So don't take other people's problems on, because there's people around who love to get rid of their problems, because as soon as they've dumped their problem in your lap, they feel okay because you've just taken it all and now you're stressed. So be very, very careful about what you're taking on. Sleep. Sleep is so important. Sleep is when the body rests and recovers. Sleep is when the adrenal glands, which is where all our stress hormones come from, that's when they get their time to recuperate. Now, this is, I would say, one of the most important things when it comes to resetting hormones and getting your body back into harmony, out of a stress response into what we call the opposite to fight and flight is rest and digest. So you don't want to be in fight and flight all the time. You actually want to spend a lot of your time in rest and digest, because when you're in rest and digest, you're sleeping and your food is digesting and you're getting nutrients and your body is actually very vital. Most people are not sleeping enough. Ideally, you should be getting 8 hours sleep a night. And according to the Chinese medicine, we have a biological clock, and it's different organs and different body systems have a peak time. For our adrenal glands, it's between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. every single night. So ideally, we need to be getting to sleep at this time. In bed and asleep by 10 o'clock at the latest. That gives your adrenal glands the chance to rest and recover. If you're not getting to bed till after 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, you're basically running on adrenal hormones and you're not allowing your body to recover. Now, there's another hormone that's involved in here, because that's the sleep hormone. And the sleep hormones work directly opposite to your stress hormones. So if you're highly stressed and the body and the brain is on alert looking for danger all the time, it's not going to go to sleep. So when your stress hormones are high, your sleep hormones are low. And that's why one of the side effects of high levels of stress is having problems with your sleep. If you tend to wake between 2 and 3 o'clock at night, well, actually between 1 and 3 in the morning, it's a sign that your liver's not working properly. So that's a liver issue. If you're waking at about 4 o'clock in the morning and having trouble getting back to sleep because your mind is spinning, that's because your cortisol levels have woken you up too early. So cortisol wakes you up, but it shouldn't wake you up till about 6 o'clock. So there's a few things that can cause that. One is blood sugar levels have come down too low, so cortisol's dropped up, or the cortisol is up because you're highly, highly stressed and all your adrenal hormones are out of balance. So sleep is really, really important, and sleep requires good sleep habits. And most people who struggle with sleep, it's because they've got poor sleep habits. And actually what I will do for everybody who's on the call, I hadn't planned to do this, but for everybody that's on the call, I have a handout on healthy sleep tips. I'm going to email that out to you all after we get off the call, just to say thank you for being on the call. So it's just got a few little tips on what you can do to get a good quality sleep. But things like, drinking sleepy tea, chamomile tea, herb teas, turning lights off before you go to, from about 9 o'clock, bringing your lights down so that you're not actually disturbing the sleep patterns, because there's a gland right in the middle of your brain, which controls daylight and nighttime. And because we turn lights on, it gets confused. It thinks it's still daytime, even though it's nighttime outside. So turning lights down. You can put an app on your computer if you're working on your computer, which is called Flux. And what Flux does is it puts an orange tinge through your screen. But I've got one on now. So from about 6 o'clock, you'll actually notice a difference in the color of the screen. During the daytime, it's got a blue light. At nighttime, it's got an orange light, and that's just gentler on the brain, so it's not actually putting a whole pile of color into your through your eyes into your brain. So if you are working on a computer, I do highly suggest that you put Flux on it, and I think you can get that for your iPads and things like that. Other thing about sleep too, don't have wireless devices in your bedroom, because wireless devices, so your iPad, your iPhones, and all of that, emit something called an EMR, and EMRs disturb your brain waves and means you can't sleep properly. So turn off all your wireless devices. If you must have a phone in your bedroom because you need an alarm, put it onto flight mode so that it's not working, because that's one of the biggest things I found in clinic when speaking to people. Is like, I'm surprised at the number of people that have iPhones in their bedroom and they use them to as an alarm clock, and they're things that they're dinging all night long because they've got notifications on, and they wonder why they're tired in the morning. They can't sleep. And, you know, one is the notifications and two is what's going on. So turn your phones off. You don't need them in your bedroom. If you do, as I said, put it onto phone and onto plane mode. The next thing, and it's really, really important to understand, as I said, 80% of all your stress comes from your thoughts, the beliefs you have, what you're taking on from other people, what you think is stress. Now, stress, as I've explained to you, is actually a physical reaction, but your emotions drive your thoughts. Your thoughts drive your behavior, and your behavior drives your emotions. So it's this really big circle that keeps going on. So to change all of that, you need to start with, what are your thoughts? And we tell ourselves stories all of the time. We tell ourselves what we see and our interactions with the rest of the world. That's just our version of the story. Because Jennifer, you said that I'll just bring your family and others that raise your stress levels. Because if I went and spoke to them, they would probably give me a different story. Maybe they'll tell me that you raise their stress levels. I don't know. But we look at it and we see this a lot. A big way you see it is when you have car accidents. You know, you have an accident with someone else, you have your version of what happened, and then they have their version of what happens. And you can stand there and you can argue until you're blue in the face that this is what's happened. And they can do the same thing. Both of you think you are telling the truth. That's when if you have a third party who saw it, who may actually be able to give you a different version of the truth, but then you might have a fourth party who might give you another version of the truth, because we all see the truth differently. It's all our story. And this is where stress comes around, because stress occurs when our reality doesn't match our beliefs. So if we believe something should be a certain way and it isn't, we get stressed. If you believe, big one in our house, my daughter's always getting in trouble from her father because her bedroom's untidy. He believes that her bedroom should always be tidy. She doesn't. So he stresses because her bedroom's a mess. She stresses because he wants her bedroom tidy. They both have different beliefs and they're getting stressed. And so then they argue, and then I get stressed because I believe they shouldn't be fighting about it. So, and this is what happens, because all of our beliefs are different. And when your belief doesn't meet the reality, it causes you stress. So what can you do? You can't change reality. The reality is my daughter's bedroom is messy most of the time. So we can't change that reality at the moment until she decides she wants to tidy it up. Only thing we can do is change our beliefs or our emotions around it. So rather than my husband getting upset because he believes her bedroom should be tidy, if he changed his emotion, the stress would all go. And I don't want to blame all this on my husband, but this is what happens. And when we all do it, we all do it. We have a set of beliefs that this is the way the world should be. If it should be the perfect world, it should run according to your way of living. And when it doesn't is when you get stressed. So the only thing that can change is you, and start looking at the way you're looking at the world. And this is a big part of my programs. Whenever I'm working with anyone, is really getting right to the deepest part of what people's beliefs are and what's really causing them stress. Yes, I work with them on their physical, so their diet, their lifestyle, all that type of stuff. And that stuff's relatively kind of easy to do. You know, because there's science around that and like it's pretty structured. But what happens when, you know, you might actually go and change your diet and you do all these things and you do it for a few months, but then you start slipping back and you get stressed about it and you feel guilty about the food you're eating and all this stuff. It's like, well, why don't you just change the way you eat? But you can't, because something's stopping you. And this is getting right deep into your beliefs. So this is the biggest part of all that I do with my clients, whether or not I'm working in clinic, on my online programs, whatever. It's really getting into what's going on in those thoughts and those beliefs, because that's truly what's causing you stress. And know that what you focus on grows. So if you continue to focus on being stressed all the time, I'm stressed, I'm tired, I'm overwhelmed, you get more and more of it. It just keeps coming. And then you go, yes, see, I told you I was stressed. I told you life was stressed. It's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if you actually change that whole thought pattern around and went, wow, I'm so grateful for my life. I've got so many things going on at the moment, and I'm so grateful for that, because that means my business is going really well. My kids are happy. I'm actually able to afford to do these things. And if you switch from a place of overwhelm and focusing on that into a place of gratitude, you'll actually find that your stress just goes, because you're focusing on something different. You focus on what you want. What you focus on grows. So if you want to be happy, you want to be vital, you want to be energetic, focus on that. Even if at the moment you don't feel energetic, it doesn't matter. Start telling yourself, I am energetic. I am full of energy. Because the more you say those words, what happens is that primitive part of your brain is listening to it. The subconscious part of your brain is listening. Now, it doesn't know that it's not a reality right at this moment. It's just hearing those words. So what it does is it draws on reserves and it creates a whole pile of energy for you. And it stops that stress response. But if you're sitting there and I'm stressed, I'm tired, I'm overwhelmed, that same part of the brain is listening, going, oh, stress, 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 and it's pushing out all these stress hormones. And you've got no control over this. You don't even know it's happening. So then you continue to get what it is that you want. So change your focus. And the biggest thing I want to say to you is always believe in yourself. Because it's when you don't believe in yourself, that's when you struggle. When you think you're not good enough, when you're not good enough in business, when you're not a good enough mum, you're not a good enough partner, you're not a good enough dog owner. It's amazing what people think about themselves. You would never speak to your best friend the way you speak to yourself. Guaranteed it. And I've heard it. The words I've heard come out of women's mouths when they're sitting in front of me is unbelievable when they're talking about themselves. You would never speak about anybody in the way you speak about yourself. Every single one of you is here for a purpose. Every single one of you is unique. And you should be proud of who you are. And if you don't like your life as it is right now, you're the only one that can change it. But you don't change it by beating yourself up. You change it by being grateful. You change it by falling in love with yourself and only doing things that are in a loving state. When you're totally in love with yourself, you will not put food into your body that doesn't flourish your body. When you're in love with yourself, you would never put yourself into any relationship that doesn't support you. I'm not sure how many people I've got on the call who are mums. I think a lot of you probably are. I know that you love your children, so you always want the best for them, and you'll give them the best and you sacrifice yourself. Why are you not doing that for you? What type of example are you setting for your children when it's okay for you to put yourself last, when it's okay for you not to be totally and utterly in love with yourself? Now, I'm not talking about ego here. I'm talking about a deep sense of real gratitude for every single part of you. You know, looking at your body and standing there going, I love you. Thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for carrying my children. I love those, you know, those what we call birthmarks, you know, of carrying a child. You know, looking at your thighs going, I love you for what you've done. You walk me around every single day. Any part of your body that you've looked at in disgust and looking at it and telling it how grateful you are for it. When you start to change these thoughts, that instead of having the thought that Christmas is going to be stressful and overwhelmed, why not have the thought that Christmas is going to be the best you've ever had? And go in with that. And every time things come up, I am loving life. This is my best Christmas. I'm organized. I've got everything under control. No one No one is stressing me out because my decision is that I'm going to really enjoy my life. I guarantee you, if you have those intentions and you focus on what you want, that's what you will get. Because, as I said, 80% of your stress happens within your brain. Now, I said I would share with you one thing that will help you to reduce stress immediately. Right at the beginning, I spoke to you about the primitive brain and how everything happens at a subconscious level, that you have no control over it. Well, there is one part of the subconscious brain that you can control, and that is your breathing. Now, the breath actually happens automatically. We do breathe, but you can control the rate of breathing. When you're in a fight and flight response, your breathing becomes very shallow and it becomes fast. And this is how people spend most of their time. They're breathing up into the upper part of their lungs very shallowly, and they're breathing quite fast. And quite often what's happening is that their shoulders are quite tight, their neck's tight, and this is where they hold all their stress. And the front part of their chest is also tight because they're kind of hunched over computers all the time. So this is a typical stress position. And this is like we're hunched up. You guys can't see me, but you're hunched up as if your back's exposed because it's protecting you, and you're basically protecting the front of your body. This is a typical stress response because you're trying to make sure that nothing can actually hurt your internal organs, which are all at front. And this is how we sit all day long when we're on computers, when we're on iPads, when kids are on these little, iPods. This is a typical stress response. So when the body's in this response, it's automatically sending all these stress hormones and making all those reactions. So if you want to change that, it's changing the rate of breathing. It's standing up. And if everybody could stand up where you are right now, I want everyone to stand up. And I want you to open your chest up. So that means lifting your shoulders and dropping them back so that your sternum is actually up. And what I want you to do is to breathe, and to breathe right down to the bottom of your lungs. And the best way to do that is to put your hands on the side of your ribs so that when you breathe in, that your hands go out to the side. They're expanding out. Now, the count I normally use is breathing in for 4, hold for 7, and breathe out for 8. Now, the out breath is more important than the in-breath because it's a slow out breath that turns off the stress response. Because if you were running for your life, you would not have a slow out breath. You may have a slower in-breath because you're breathing deep, and that can happen, but you would never have a slow out breath if you were running for your life. So at any time that you are feeling stressed and things are feeling overwhelmed, just take a big deep breath, hold it for 7, and breathe it out for 8. Now, this is yoga style breathing. So if any of you do yoga, you should know this because this is belly breathing right down to the bottom of your lungs and filling all the way up. If you wake up in the middle of the night and your mind's racing, and sometimes people will wake up and their heart will be pumping, and that's actually a stress response. So something's actually triggered a stress response at nighttime. If you actually do that breathing, you will actually lower those stress levels so you can go back to sleep again. There's one other thing that I do when I do this breathing at night, and that's actually a hand symbol that I call, which is infinite love and gratitude. I'm not going to, I talk about that more in my programs, but even if you just say the words in your head, if you can, while you're counting love, 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 it just calms you down. Because if you wake up and your heart is beating and racing, well, not beating, if it's racing, you're in a fear response for some reason. So I'm nearly finished, and I just want to finish up now. Hopefully you've enjoyed the information that I've given you here tonight. So some of the things I've shared with you, you can actually implement straight away. And honestly, it will make a difference in your life. Now, if you're interested in finding out a little bit more, I do have a program, and it's called the Kickstart Program. That's because it's based on my book. So it goes through the 7 steps that I've written about in the book, which is all about lifestyle, changing your values, identifying your values, getting really clear on your vision, and a lot of the mindset stuff. And also within this program, I've also included a health program. Now, this is the same health program that I use in clinic, but without all the addition. But basically, it's a healthy eating program, looking at your lifestyle, looking at all of that, getting your gut working again properly, reducing all of the stress that comes to you on a physical level from the foods that you're eating. So I've basically put two programs together in one, because you can't just look at one without the other. And I discovered that many years ago in clinic. I can't just look at the diet and what's going on with the gut and improve that without changing the lifestyle and the mindset. So I've kind of brought it all together. So it's a health, lifestyle and mindset all in one. It's an online program. It's full of videos. They're relatively short videos, so you don't have to spend a lot of time watching them, but you'll get lots of information out of them, and you get to watch them anytime you like. Because you get also every week, I'm going to jump on a call and I'm going to answer your questions and give you more information. So for 8 weeks, I'm available to you to go through any questions that you might have, anywhere where you might be stumbling, because this stuff can be hard if you've never done it before, or if it's, particularly as we get into this time of year when it's really, really busy, you might need some support. So that's why I'm actually online. As I said, once a week, I'm online to answer your questions live, just on Google Hangouts, the same as we are here. Plus, I also have a Facebook group, which is a private Facebook group where you can jump in there between calls, ask questions. It's a very small group, very, very supportive, so you can get all the answers. There's a few other things in there, bonuses in there. You get lots of recipes. I've got recipe books. I've got program booklets, which is the health program. I also interviewed quite a few other experts in different areas. I've got numerology, feng shui, organizer, an SEO expert. So I just went, some of the people that I work with, I interviewed them on what they did, and I put a series of interviews together, and they've got extra information to share with you as well. So that's also included. The whole program really is designed to kickstart, to get you back in control, so that once it gets to Christmas and then next year and the month after that and the month after that, you can actually, what stress is and you know how to control it. So if you're ready to rewrite your story of stress, it actually has a special price which only runs until midnight tomorrow night. It's the reason why I'm running this webinar. So it's $397 until midnight tomorrow night. After that, it goes back to its normal price of $597. But what I'm also offering for the first 10 people who register is that you get a free one-on-one consult with me, an hour consult with me one-on-one, where we have a talk about what it is that's going on in your life. Now, that's actually valid from 3 months from when you register. So you can do that at any time through the program. You can do it at the beginning, the middle, or even if you want some support afterwards. I keep that open for 3 months. You can take that at any time you like. Now, I just want to, the link is up there on the screen, but I'm going to try and get it up on, I'm trying to get you a link that comes through. Okay, it didn't work. I did actually have a link that should come up. But if you go to that AngelaCouncil.com/SNB-Kickstart-program, if you go over there, you'll find a lot more information about what's included in the program. If it's something that you're really interested in, then just click on Get Me the Secret, and that'll take you through. And as I said, that special price runs only until midnight tomorrow night. So if there's any questions, please, I'd love to hear them. Drop them, or any comments, please put them in the chat box. If there's anything else you'd like to know, we are up on our time, but I'm here to give you a bit more, I'm happy to give you a little bit more information. I do just want to share a quote with you. This quote comes from my book, and this is my main message that I have for everybody that I work with. You are a miracle. The power to create the life of your dreams is within you. Stop doing what everyone else expects of you. Stop looking for the elusive, perfectly balanced life. Start being your true self. Believe in yourself. Value yourself. Live your vision. The choice is yours. You are a miracle. Believe in yourself. You are perfect just the way you are. From my heart to yours, infinite love and gratitude. So I want to thank you for joining me tonight. I certainly hope that you got lots of information and you've got some tips that you can take away that will make a difference in your life, that's going to get you through the next few months without the stress. I will send you the sleep tips. I'll pop that on an email for you later on tonight. So you've got something to start with. Remember breathing. Breathing it's amazing how quickly you can calm down when you take a few deep breaths. If you've got any questions, please feel free. I'll stay on the line for a couple more minutes. If not, the questions will come through to me anyway, and then I'll just answer them via email to you. But thank you very much for being with me tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye for now.